It went down today on Capitol Hill. Democrats are fed up and calling people out for their wrongdoings. Listen, in a world where justice is at risk, House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries is making a bold move. He's calling for action to ensure the delicate balance of the Supreme Court is protected. But before we dive into the details of what Jeffries is demanding of the Supreme Court justice, let's talk about exactly what that justice did to get himself called out. Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito has created some major doubt by displaying flags connected to Christian nationalism and the Stop the Steal movement. I mean, seriously, seeing an appeal to heaven flag flying outside his vacation home alongside other questionable incidents like displaying the upside down American flags, it just doesn't sit right. We all expect our Supreme Court justices to be impartial and unbiased, right? So when we see these kinds of associations with symbols tied to such politically charged movements and events like the January 6th riot, it really shakes the faith of fairness in our judicial system. Talk about raising eyebrows. I mean, especially with big cases like Fisher versus the United States in the spotlight, where the outcomes could have some serious implications for how we hold people accountable for what went down on January 6th. It's not just Justice Alito either. Rumors swirling around other conservative justices like Clarence Thomas and their ties to the Capitol riot only crank up the pressure. But today, the spotlight was mostly on Alito. Okay, let's get to the meat of this story. House Democratic Leader Hakeem Jeffries has taken a stand calling for Justice Samuel Alito to step back from all January 6 related cases after reports surfaced about the two right-wing flags flying over his properties. Jeffries definitely did not hold back when calling out that Justice Alito and Clarence Thomas have gone too far. Let's watch.
Leader Jeffries, can I get your reaction to Samuel Alito having flown various flags of conservative nature outside of both his beach house, it appears, as well as his residence here? Is that appropriate for Supreme Court justice?
Totally inappropriate. Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas are totally out of control. These individuals continue to detonate the credibility of the United States Supreme Court. In the case of Samuel Alito, he definitively needs to recuse himself from any matter pending before the United States Supreme Court that has to do with the January 6th violent insurrection. He should have no part of it. Part of the problem that we confront is that the Supreme Court has chosen to conduct itself as if the judiciary is above the law. In America, no one is above the law. That includes the Supreme Court, that includes Samuel Alito, and that includes Clarence Thomas. If the Supreme Court does not get its act under control, you can be confident that Democrats in the House of Representatives, partnering with Democrats in the United States Senate, will act the first opportunity we have to engage in thorough oversight and the consideration of imposing an ethical code of conduct on Supreme Court justices.
I love that Jeffries didn't hold back in his accusations and pressed that the justices have crossed a line that cannot be ignored. His spotlight was fixed firmly on Justice Alito, and his request for him to withdraw from any Supreme Court case linked to the violent events of January 6th is fair. What are we to make of a situation where judges' own allegiances and impartialities are called into question? Can we entrust the scales of justice to someone whose own ties to controversial events are under scrutiny? These questions cut to the heart of what justice truly means in our society, a concept that should be blind, unwavering in its neutrality, never bending to the winds of political influence or personal connections. But the drama doesn't end there. Jeffries isn't just making demands. He's issuing a warning that will be heard through the halls of power. He is sending a message to our elected officials that say, if the courts fail to right its course, we will not shy away from enforcing ethical standards. That's right, folks. It's a call to action, a signal that House and Senate Democrats are prepared to take matters into their own hands if the highest court in the land does not stand and meet the expectations of fairness and integrity. We need to keep a close eye on whether personal leanings are swaying judicial decisions. Our Supreme Court has to maintain the highest ethical standards if we're going to trust that justice is being served fairly and without bias. Justice Alito, the ball is in your court. Will you listen to the calls for recusal and uphold the integrity of the court?